So my impression is that probably most, if not certainly a majority of Americans, would prefer diplomacy and do not support a military attack on Iran. I've seen polls with very low numbers supporting military attack on Iran. But when he's been asked on another topic, what difference does it make that a majority of Americans disagree with you, the Vice President's response has been one word: so. And so maybe we can have some influence on Rice or Gates, I don't know how. Maybe we can have some influence on members of the military to resist this, as some of them have been doing, but it's difficult. So Congress seems like where we have to go. They're supposed to represent us, and maybe we can shame Virgil Good, who lied us into the last board and not lie us into the next board. But at some point, if Congress stops funding illegal activities, if Congress stops these get tough resolutions, what do we want them to do? Perhaps they pass a resolution saying, please obey the Constitution, even though the Constitution's already there. I mean, they tried that already and failed to do it, right? Yeah. So at some point, what the hell do we want them to do? And Congressman John Conyers has suggested, well, after they bomb Iran, then we'll impeach them. To me, this is a little bit backwards and a little bit too late, and I don't want to pay that price to get to impeachment. What would be wrong with, say, impeaching them now so that they can't attack Iran? And what other option is there? I would love to hear one.
I know that you've done a lot of work on the impeachment issue, David, and I think you've done some great organizing around it. I actually personally disagree. I think impeachment is a diversion from what we need to do, which is to rein in the whole of the political leadership in this country from its bellophilia. And largely it's starting to happen anyway because of the experience in Iraq, because of the costs of the Iraq war. I mean, I think if there were actually a congressional debate on a resolution, and you know, we haven't had a debate yet of the nature of the debates that there were, for example, in the lead up to the invasion of Iraq. I mean, we can just, you know, remember those debates and how big and important they were. If there were a debate in Congress on a resolution to invade Iran, I don't think they would get the resolution through. I think it's being done in all these kind of sub rosa ways to get it through. But the political leadership as a whole is much more war averse now than it was in 2002. So we need to push that even further and to get the diplomacy really underway. I mean, I think so long as we don't have the diplomacy, then, you know, the authoritative diplomacy, then the people who want war or escalation to the point of war will continue to maneuver. So you're right, I think the military themselves are playing a different and more honest and professional role right now. I think the Secretary of Defense, it makes a huge difference to have Bob Gates as Secretary of Defense rather than having Donald Rumsfeld. So Congress is where we need to act. I think we need to push for resolutions that, you know, urge or mandate diplomacy. Yeah, right.
Unfortunately, those resolutions have not gone anywhere, but also, I mean, we've been calling for more hearings on Iran. Last year, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee did not hold a single hearing on Iran. They had a closed-door briefing for their members, not one single hearing on Iran. Now, of course, Iran came up in various Iraq hearings and primarily in Iraq hearings, but there was not a single Senate Foreign Relations hearing last year in Iran. There's been a lack of congressional hearings on Iran in the House this year. You know, they're pressed to do so, and they've been reluctant to do so. And then again, you know, there's when there has been, you know, a vote about trying to bar appropriations to use any sort of appropriations in either defense appropriations or some sort of amendment to the defense authorization bill, we've lost votes in the last couple of years in relation to Iran, meaning that Congress has not been willing to stand up because, you know, they are so worried, the Democrats are so worried about not looking tough on Iran or being accused of being weak on national security. And this is a serious problem, and that's why we need more people weighing in to say that, look, we will support your position if you stand up against these things. But the other thing is that there are positive things that Congress can be doing. There is a resolution that was introduced by Barbara Lee. We tried to get a more mainstream member of Congress to introduce it, but it wasn't possible because it was Iran. But calling for a special envoy or some other high-level administration official who would be empowered to negotiate with Iran, because that has been a serious problem in this administration. That even Ambassador Crocker in the talks with Iraq, he was never empowered to actually create next steps or even set the date for the next meeting. And William Burns, he goes to Geneva. He has no power. He's an implementer. The State Department implements policy. They're not going to. State Department isn't all of a sudden going to radically change its view or demur from this administration. We really need Congress pressing on the Bush administration to implement these things. But there are other things like this regime change slush fund, which is what I call the program to promote democracy. It's the regime change slush fund. And we've gotten tax groups really energized over this issue. I mean, this is another thing. That came from Congress. That didn't come from the administration. It came from Congress is the one that authorized that and increased money for it. We can be pressing members to program that money. And there are other things, too, where, they could ease the sanctions bills that Congress has passed to say that we want a more opening. We want to send signals to the Iranians that we're willing at some point to negotiate. So, for example, urging, Congress could pass a law urging the Office of Foreign Assets Control, for example, to ease restrictions on U.S. NGO activities in Iran, which would be an important gesture, I think. I mean, it's not the Iranians who bar U.S. NGO participation in Iran. It's OFAC. And the best example I like to give of this is Mercy Corps. After the Bam earthquake in 2002, Mercy Corps was able to get a license from OFAC to go in and operate for a year to help rebuild Bam, which was devastated by an earthquake. After a year, their license ran out. They went back to OFAC, tried to renew because, Bam, OFAC, Office of Foreign Assets Control. So Mercy Corps went back to OFAC to renew its license so it could continue operating to help rebuild BAM. And they were denied by OFAC. They were told they had 30 days to get out. Now, Mercy Corps is the precise ambassadors we want in Iran. I mean, those are the people we want representing us. And BAM is still a city that has not been rebuilt. So, I mean, there are little things that we can be doing, and this is what I was, referring to earlier when I was talking about creating the conditions so that we have an environment where diplomacy can succeed.